All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us this morning for 1 Million Cups. I'm actually pretty excited for our presentation this morning. Not that I'm not always excited. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
Sure, not great.
We're gonna, wow. Anyways, quick thank you to our sponsors, Dream Bank for the space and Starting Block for their continued support. Also, if you haven't already, make sure you download the 1 Million Cups app and check in. We're gonna go around the room, do some introductions real quick. Just give us your name and a little bit about what you do, and then we will kick off our presentation. So first off, I am Trezzy. I'm our MC and co-organizer here at 1 Million Cups, and also a software engineer consultant.
My name's Joey. I'm a technology investment manager at WEDC. Also, I guess co-organizer with the group.
My name is Josh Helling. I'm also one of the co-organizers of 1 Million Cups here. I'm also a co-founder of Rootstock Partners, where we work with non-technical founders and executives to define, execute, and sustain successful software product strategies.
Thanks. I'm Diana Pastrana. I'm the executive assistant at Aldebaran, and I'm going to go with like an advisory role
Embarrassed,
for
perhaps.
organizers.
From the Organizers Hall of Fame. Yeah.
Hall of Fame's a nice place to sit. Go ahead.
I can go next? Hi, I'm Mark. I'm the community manager for Starting Block, actually. So.
Oh, cool.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Mohammed Domba. I'm a 2019 Mandela Washington Fellow from Liberia. In fact, it's my 7th time in this building. A few weeks back, we had an opportunity to tour this building to know the fantastic work that is going on here. And I'm from the background of the health sector, but I'm interested in agricultural activities, especially the management and circulation of mangoes and other fruit and vegetables that are being wasted into our community on a large scale. And I was informed by this opportunity by my co-worker, my friend who I met at the University of Madison, and I'm happy to be here to get more connection with the opportunity provided here today.
Josh, you're a man.
Talk all about the fellows too.
I'm Anna Snyder. I work in international agriculture and development at UW-Madison and University of Illinois.
I'm Derek Gebler. I'm also a co-organizer of 1 Million Cups, and also I'm a digital media strategist.
I'm Keith Fuller. I'm the founder of All About EX. It's a service that handles all things people for startups.
I'm Dan Anderson, and I work for the accounting firm Baker Tilly.
I'm Angie Allen, and I'm with the accounting firm Riley Penryn Benton.
Oh, you guys lost it.
We understand each other.
Michelle Jolly, I'm a health coach with Busy Entrepreneurs.
I'm James with Calls and Call. I have a phone answering service for small businesses.
Peter Cabby, with wealth manager with Bank of America and Merrill Lynch. We're one stop, peace of mind for financial security.
Chuck Sarah, patent and trademark attorney with DeWitt Law Firm.
I'm Travis Human. I own Straight Cut Bicycles, but I'm actually looking for new opportunities.
Jaya Palat, I'm with Upraise. It's a fundraising platform for nonprofits.
All right, well, once again, thank you for joining us. We're about to hear about Agricycle, so let's hear it from Josh.
Yeah, thank you. All right, hi everyone. My name is Josh. I'm the founder of Agricycle, and I started Agricycle 4 years ago, a week after my freshman year of college in Milwaukee. And I just finished up my last year of school a couple months ago, so now I'm here. You guys might have heard of Blue Mangoes in some form or another, maybe, but Agricycle is what I'll be presenting, and you might understand later how that connects. So Agricycle is on a mission to end rural poverty for women across the world through small choices and big dreams. And it's because this story is one that happens way too often. It's the story of young girls who wake up in the morning and are told to, instead of go to school, to pick mangoes from the ancestral trees that are sitting at their home and to bring them to a market and sell them. The issue is that 4 out of every 5 of the women in northern Uganda who try to sell those mangoes go home empty-handed. And when they do manage to sell one of those buckets of mangoes, it's for 35 cents. Now, one of the girls that we were interviewing had 15,000 more mangoes waiting at her home. I wanted to know if this was a bigger problem, and I found out that 2.8 trillion pounds of food is wasted every single year. Now, food loss is a part of food waste, and it happens between the producer and the market. On average, it's about 385 pounds per person. Now, in North America, 60% of everything that's wasted is food loss, and a lot of that is because you guys might have heard of imperfect produce. If something doesn't look right, it's thrown out before it reaches the market. What we have to prevent the things that aren't because of imperfect produce. We have better agricultural technologies and storage techniques. In sub-Saharan Africa, up to 95% of waste happens because of food loss. Some of the techniques and agricultural technologies that a smallholder farmer has, bicycles with boxes on the back to carry the mangoes to market. Now, this is a big problem, and that's why there's so many groups trying to fix it. These are just a few of them, and we happen to be partnered with every one of them. Now, what Agricycle does is we design technologies that preserve fruits without any electricity, and then build brands out of those products and the byproducts of those. We start by making passive solar dehydrators. These are built out of local materials and don't use any electricity to dry fruit. The sun comes down and heats up this tunnel, where the bottom of it is a thermal mass, and the air heats up as it moves through to where the chamber holds slices of dried fruit. Now, in the future, we're actually manufacturing dehydrators in Wisconsin, a much more simple version. It also helps us to scale much faster. This is what some of the training looks like. Initially, we sensitize the farmers, and what that means is we really introduce them to the concept of preserving fruits through drying, and then we teach them about our model and exactly what outcomes they can expect. After that, we train women to form or who are in existing farming cooperatives in food safety and quality standards. And they produce dried fruit that looks like that. So some of the brands that we've been building, the first one is Blue Mangoes. It's our sun-dried, completely organic, all-natural, nothing added dried fruits. This is also the back of the packages, world's most natural and empowering dried fruits. That's the tagline there. But we launched on Kickstarter. We sold over 2,500 bags. We were overfunded, which was awesome. That was just back in May. And some of the places that we'll be selling these fruits, Target and ShopRite. And that's because, well, at least for Target, because we were just in the Target incubator, which is based in Minneapolis. We had a great experience there. And it connected us with not only the buyers, where we had weekly meetings with them, but also one of our mentors now is the Vice President of Food and Beverage. One of our next brands is Tropical Ignition, which is a better for everyone charcoal made out of 100% coconut. Burns hotter and lasts longer than existing brands, but more than that, it's also cleaner, and it wants to be picked up not only by Target, but also by Ace Hardware. Then finally, our gluten-free flour lines that are made, or that are 100% gluten-free, natural. We have breadfruit flour, coffee flour, coconut flour, and banana flour. All these different flours are made out of the byproducts of the drying process, just like the coconut charcoal is made out of the byproducts of the drying process. The idea is that it's a complete zero-waste system where every single thing is used for something. And this is more of our B2B wholesale, which we'll be selling Patagonia Provisions to start with. So this is some of the team that we have. I'm the founder, Jacob, Jen, Hayden, Patrick, Francis, Daisy, JB, all of us are really integral in different ways. The team is much larger than this too. These are just to show you some of the different tasks that need to happen within our supply chain. We're vertically integrated, so that means that we're not only sourcing the produce, we're manufacturing the products, we're building the brands, and we're also selling it. We have a network of 11,000 farmers in 7 different countries, focused on East Africa, but also in Liberia, where we had a grant through the State Department for the Mandela Washington Fellows. We also have 800 women in our cooperatives currently. And by the end of 2020, we plan on having over 10,000 to meet our demand for product. So in summary, Agricycle is really a zero-waste supply chain built on ethical standards of direct trade, as well as transforming waste into opportunity. I'd way more rather have lots of questions answered than keep talking about it. It gets a little nuanced, so what are your questions? I'm done.
This is super interesting. I have lots of questions, but I guess maybe you could start with, I'm really curious about the origin story, like what kicked this off. Like there's clearly, a big theme that you're creatively driving for a bunch of different details, but it started someplace.
Yeah, definitely. So when I showed up originally to University of Milwaukee, I was in the honors program, and there was a nonprofit in Jamaica that reached out and asked for us to work on this project. It was based on us turning dried fruits into beer. So you would take a dried mango and you would dehydrate a mango, ship it, rehydrate it, and then distill it into beer. It was a really silly project. It didn't work, but we figured that out very quickly, and then we pivoted to be focused on dried fruit, which is where we got the Blue Mangoes brand. We were working in the Blue Mountains of Jamaica, which is why it's called Blue Mangoes. So that was our original origin, was through that school project, and that's what introduced us to the idea. What really happened from there is that the school started to push back against us existing. They were concerned that students traveling without essentially professors watching over everything was a liability to them. They're worried that if something happened with our fruit or if something happened to the farmers, the university would suffer in reputation. There's a lot of nuanced concerns they had, but essentially they fired me from all their jobs, or all the jobs I had, lost my scholarships, and that's when we started to succeed. So I had more time on my hands, and then I didn't have to wait for my business professor to get his revisions back to my business plan. We just went.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Were you at Milwaukee?
I was not.
Okay.
No, I was at that little school that everyone hates. Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
Mine is not a question, but it's just, my motivation and my interest in your vision, in your ability. Like currently, yes, you mentioned the affiliation with the U.S. State Department opportunity. I'm the current Mandela Washer Fellow from Liberia, and you are my cash. I have a contact with you, and I'm going to share my contact with you. We are going to discuss and move this to the higher level in Liberia, because there is a market opportunity for this, and thank you for the great point.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's convenient. Yeah, no, thank you. So I can speak to what we're doing in Liberia. Maybe it matters to everyone just to see what we actually do on the ground. So in Liberia, I had a friend who participated in the Commons, which is a startup skills accelerator basically in Milwaukee when I was a freshman, and he was originally from Liberia. He was an international student here. He co-founded a nonprofit based in Liberia. A co-founder ended up getting the Mandela Washington Fellowship, which brings you over to the United States. You stay at a university, I think it's during the summer.
Yeah, for 6 months.
Yes, yep. And the idea is that you're trained either on an entrepreneurial track or I think a leadership nonprofit track.
Business management, yes.
Yep. So we started talking, and we tried out a new model where instead of based off of women in our cooperatives, and I can speak to that too and why we have a focus on women, we tried youth, and we had a youth-focused employment model. It didn't work how we thought it would. It turned out that the young people in the community that we worked in didn't want to be farmers in the end. They were all very interested in the entrepreneurial side. When they found out that, when they realized that day to day they would be slicing and drying fruits, they said that they felt like their parents being farmers. So it was really interesting. It was a lesson learned. What we pivoted is to a train-the-trainer model. So what that means is that people that we've been training to dry the fruits, well now, these young people want to be treated more like entrepreneurs. They want to have more decision-making power in their day-to-day life. So we trained them more so that they could then go and train others. And we went back to our original model of women-focused cooperatives, but now instead of us training people, it would be the young people who we had trained. So that was our experience in Liberia so far. Yeah.
So who pays for the drying stuff initially?
Yeah, so for the dehydrators, it's been a mix of different models we've been testing. The short answer is not us. The longer answer is that some dehydrators are paid for by an American immigrant who has a family in the community and they're sponsoring it. Some are paid for through microloans. One of the partnerships I put up was SMEP. They're a microfinance organization. So we negotiated a good rate for any farmer. It was 1.5% interest. For any farmer who wants to have a dehydrator, they could get a loan for it. And then it was essentially socially guaranteed by us, not legally or financially, but they knew that if the farmer was working with us, they would be able to repay that microloan because we are that farmer's market. So that's essentially how one of the models, and then the other model is just large NGOs pay for 50 or 100 of them.
Where's it packaged? Is it packaged in country?
Yes.
And where does the packaging come from?
Yeah, so some of the packaging comes from China. We found a sustainable packaging company in China. Some of it gets packaged in the US. It's actually one of our weak points right now, is we're trying to figure out exactly how our packaging works. So one of the companies I put up here was ShopRite, which has a very large presence in sub-Saharan Africa. They've been on us about selling in Kenya, South Africa, and Nigeria. So for us, we want to be packaging in sub-Saharan Africa. There's more value addition locally, obviously, but also it allows us to sell to local markets too. But it's something we're still figuring out.
When so you said you're socially guaranteeing the loan.
Yeah.
There's nothing that restricts the producer to you as their market. When you say you're their market, you mean de facto, not?
Yeah,
Okay.
de facto. When we begin manufacturing our dehydrators in Wisconsin, we'll have an exclusivity agreement for a few years. Just because of the financial...
So you're going to subsidize them in exchange for the exclusivity?
Exactly. And the reason for why we'll be manufacturing in Wisconsin compared to our approach of building locally out of local materials so far is because with this super increased demand that we're having, we need to expand much faster, and we can't do that through building out of local materials. Building out of local materials is good for slow, steady growth, but it doesn't allow us to scale up quickly. So that's why we can manufacture 10,000, 15,000 dehydrators in a matter of a couple weeks, compared to building maybe 50 or 100 locally.
Yeah. So you've got people on the ground in other countries, right? Can you speak to some of the aspects of, man, it's tough enough to figure out how 50 different states work as far as labor laws and benefits and whatever. How are you dealing with the aspect, how do I hire someone in French Guyana?
Yeah. So it's definitely been complicated, to say the least. We rely a lot on our local staff. So the people that we are hiring are normally referrals from qualified NGOs. NGOs are non-governmental organizations. Had a lot of referrals from the World Food Program, which has helped us. So after those referrals, we do interviews, and then it's kind of on them to help us set up and understand the local context. So we haven't been hiring local HR or local legal mostly. We do have an employer in Kenya. But for the most part, it's been them helping us to understand, okay, this is how healthcare works. This is how Social Security works. And then we base the pay off of that. And it's a kind of informal system that we've been forced to use right now. So I have an app on my phone called Wave. It gets the best discounts, or the best, basically discounts on paying people abroad. So that's what we've been using. It's not like there's a larger HR system in place for how we're onboarding them. Not for how we work with everyone abroad. We have field staff. We have a management level of country director. There's people who are focused on quality assurance, people who are focused on training smallholder farmers. All of them interact very well so far. We've been lucky that there hasn't been a big HR problem. But yeah, it's been a big focus. I think one thing though on HR that we've done in all of our job offers, I'm forgetting the exact phrasing we use, but we have something of like an ethical code, like agreement too, and it lists out basically everything we expect as far as ethics, integrity, respect for people, etc. They sign that too on the line right after agreeing to the job. So it's one thing that, I mean, of course, maybe they're already legally beholden to that, or to our standards they are, but it's more of getting people to be thinking about it. As they're agreeing to a job, they're understanding these are also our standards.
Code of conduct.
Yeah.
So 2 questions. How long have you guys been producing?
Yeah, we've been producing in a serious way for the last 1.5 years. And we've had samples coming for the last 3 years.
So one of the things that, like, you know, you start with this really compelling story about these people who are kind of disadvantaged and need help, but you didn't really circle back around to them to say like how you're benefiting their community. Do you have like case studies built out yet about kind of the benefit that the environments are receiving?
Yeah, so I can speak to that. Generally, I'll say, first of all, that impacted metrics are actually probably the biggest gap that our team has right now.
It's going to be like very hard to judge.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of resources to really measure economic impact and social impact in communities. That helps us with the grants that we have access to, but it takes a little bit of work to get there. I can speak though to the impact that I know. So within these 800 women in our cooperatives, on average, they make between 4 to 5 times the average daily wage in the country. None of the women that we are working with have ever had formal job training. Now they do in food safety and quality assurance. Most of them have never held a formal employment. So they've all been traditional family farmers, subsistence farmers. With that, there's the social impact of how much more they're making, and also that average daily wage is based on typically men. Men said that because mostly men are the ones who are in the workforce. The second of all, we also have an environmental impact. So not just on the food waste, which we're making a tiny, tiny dent in. There's so much more. But also specifically on deforestation. So in 2 different ways. The first is that our charcoal is starting to be sold locally. It's a cleaner charcoal, and instead of cutting down a coconut tree or fruit tree or a tree, you're now taking the shell of that coconut that would have gone to waste, and you can turn the meat into a starch, and you can turn the oil, take the oil. Those 3 things back together creates a charcoal briquette. So it's sustainable charcoal, literally a renewable biofuel, essentially, despite it coming in the form of charcoal. But third, I guess, at this point, is our impact on fruit trees. So not just through the charcoal, but also there's 2 different nonprofits we're working with, the Fruit Tree Planting Foundation and Trees That Feed Foundation. Both of them plant fruit trees. Both of them have their trees cut down. Not because they want it to, but because people make more money by cutting down a fruit tree and burning it into charcoal. Which sucks, because fruit trees are really good for the environment, and also is an opportunity for local communities. What we do is we create value for those trees. It's kind of a gap in thinking when a nonprofit just places fruit trees somewhere and says, there, now you have fruits. They already had a lot of fruits a lot of times. So for us to be creating a direct path and market connection, literally, for these farmers, those fruit trees now have value. They're not cut down. And also, it's not just like they move on to the next tree. They're incentivized to instead focus on this and spending their time making money through this rather than cutting down trees somewhere else. So those are some of the impact stories.
That's great.
Are you thinking future, like what next? Maybe like what about nut trees? Is it a big?
Yeah. So we've been expanding slowly in our product line. We have 3 product lines: the dried fruits, the charcoals, and the fruit flowers. We have 2 brands. The charcoal and the dried fruit are brands that would be consumer facing. Meanwhile, the fruit flowers are more B2B. It's ingredient supplying. It's wholesaling. As for expanding past that, right now, in the future, we have access to unlimited ingredients that typically go to waste, just through low-cost, appropriate technologies that we design, because we have more of a market than something we can get locally. So we have access to a lot of things. We've thought about energy bars made from the fruit flowers and the dried fruits. We've thought about fruit and wine, because we have access to unlimited mangoes and papayas. There's a lot of different things that can come from it, but for now we're focusing on these 3 lines. Yeah.
Are you in Target and ShopRite stores right now?
No, but I should be signing an agreement with Target next month. So, yeah, thank you. Yeah. So Target with, so the Target Incubator was an amazing program. We were selected from it. It's focused on Gen Z and millennial consumers, and then as far as companies, it's focused on social good and environmental good. So they used us as much as we used them. For us, we were advanced customer research, and they were trying to understand exactly how to market their products and how young people were marketing their products to this demographic that they really cared to sell to. And then for us, we got access to their buyers, their vice president of food and beverage, their packaging folks have been helping us. Every revision we make is based on all of their edits to it. They've been coaching our products to be sold in their stores. So that's been a huge boon, just being in the program, and also just being able to have that much access to buyers. Typically a target buyer will give a vendor 30 minutes a year. So we've had 5 minutes just with the dry fruit one in the past month and a half. So it's been helpful.
From the excuse me, from the perspective of the producer's margin on the mango product, what's the payoff term on the upfront investment for the dehydrator?
The dehydrator. So typically, I think it's between 3 to 4 weeks. That's if they're producing full time during that time.
Yeah.
Let's say that it's rainy half the time and then they miss half the season. You know, it could be 8 weeks, 10
weeks. If they get a 1.5% loan to do this, I mean, business-wise, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah. So it's really beneficial. For the mango price, so northern Uganda kind of has the cheapest prices we've been able to find in sub-Saharan Africa. And I'm sorry, I'm sick. So sub-Saharan Africa, so it's I think it's like 7/10 of a penny per mango. We're paying up to 52 times that. So per fresh fruit. Now we buy it at the point where it's dried, so we don't pay for any losses along the way where some of it might spoil, they might not store it correctly, they might have bad fruit from their trees. The benefit though is that based on our communal model, which is that instead of working on a plantation style, there's one machine that goes by, shakes every tree, catches all of it, moves on to the next. The community works together. So they source the best mangoes from their trees. It's not like they're going to waste, like they're on the ground rotting. They are the best mangoes in their community. And they pick those because they're never going to be used. So those are the fruits that end up getting used in the dehydrator. Answer your question, plus more. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the whole health and FDA, how they get involved with this?
Yeah, definitely.
And then seasonality of, since it's tree-growing fruit that you're doing?
Absolutely. So first on the food safety side of things, so JB, John Bosco, he has a food science and technology degree and food safety certifications. He's the one who's been helping us to get all the local certifications that we need. It's crazy how much that varies country to country. You'd think it was essentially just the lab test at the end of the day. In Uganda, you can't have a food safety certification or get something food safety certified without having a changing room, which is separate from a bathroom within like 50 feet of the producing area, or the building that produces the stuff. So I mean, that's just like a very nuanced requirement. That's some of the stuff that JB helps us with, but overall, the women get their food safety training from us or from qualified NGOs that we work with. More and more we're starting to outsource that requirement from us, and it's not like we have to pay for that. NGOs are looking for opportunities to do their job, which is to train women in cooperatives so they can make money. So we can shelve more of that responsibility off of us, but at the end of the day, the person who's responsible for the food safety certification is based on a lab test done in country, and that lab has to meet international standards. And if it does meet international standards, which the ones we do, then the FDA accepts the product through reciprocity, which says that, okay, you accept our dried fruit, we'll accept your dried fruit as long as it meets international standards. Because dried fruit is a natural form of preservation, charcoal is fine, and flowers are also naturally preserved to a certain degree. It really helps that we're not dealing with perishable products. That's the first part. On the supply chain side, so the reason for why we're so spread out, we're also in the Caribbean, yeah, it shows it. We're in the Caribbean too, East and West Africa, Central America. It's not because we just got excited and we're like, everyone wants us somewhere, we're gonna go. Because that did happen for a little bit. But we reined it back in, and we really focused on hedging against seasonality. So there's 2 to 3 countries that we can source any product from at any point of the year. There's a weak spot in September and October. But overall, we can source almost all of our products at any point of the year, year-round. Meanwhile, any one of our countries can produce essentially all the product we need if we dive deeper in it. So we've spread out as much as we want to, and now we're diving deeper into each country that we're in. We're not looking to expand to more countries or regions. We're looking to use the resources we've set up in each country now. But overall, we have backups. So Haiti has been, the best way to put it, there's been a lot of political and physical turmoil in Haiti over the past like 6 to 8 months. We're in Haiti. For us, that meant we couldn't get product out. In fact, we couldn't visit most of the time. The State Department ordered an evacuation of U.S. people twice, I think. So that was really difficult for us. At the same time, we were producing in Uganda and Kenya, so we were fine. That's the fact of a lot of the regions that we're working in. It's less stable, but that doesn't affect our business operations too much because of the extra precautions we've taken. Yeah.
So, how prepared are you to scale up at the degree it sounds like you're about to in going into Target and shop right around the world?
Yeah. So this very day, underwhelmingly. Now our model is prepared to scale very quickly. We can access another 200,000 farmers by the end of this week if we wanted to, mostly through our connections with the World Food Program, the Agriculture Organization, U.S. Agency for International Development. But as for them being able to dry product, that's very different. It requires dehydrators. So right now we're actually raising around a good chunk of that, a round of investment, a good chunk of that is to get product. Now part of that is to do our manufacturing dehydrators. That allows us to scale up within 2 months. The cooperatives will have been trained on them, food safety certified, they'll have their dehydrators, we'll be ready to go. And because Target, their next changeover of dried fruits is in May, and we have a good runway to build up product until then, they move pretty slow. They're big. So we're lucky because of the timing so far, but that's why we're raising a round, because you're right, today we're not prepared to. 2 months from now, we could be ready. Yeah.
I'm curious to know how you made these contacts with FAO, USAID, and if that's what got you into the country, or you got into the country and you got those contacts?
My typical approach has been getting into the country first. We tried contacting them before we got there. Of course, they respond eventually after a couple of emails, but normally then it was some lower level person who was like, okay, cool, I guess it's another kid who thinks he can save the world. And there's not much of a response on their end. Pivoted our approach, and now we just drop into the country and we call the local office and we say, hi, I'm here, can you meet today? Every time it's worked. So the World Food, in Liberia, we dropped in, we called the World Food Program. 2.5 hours later, their entire office was there, from the country director all the way through the program managers on livelihood projects, on agriculture. And we started hammering out exactly like who we are. There was a big introduction period, of course, but that's been our approach for the most part. We are leveraging networks too. So there are immigrants who we work with a lot of times, Mandela Washington Fellows. Also, Jacob is a former Peace Corps volunteer, and then he was an agricultural supply chain consultant for about 6 months in West Africa. So he has massive networks in West Africa, but also being a returned Peace Corps volunteer, he has between 50 to 150 people on the ground in most countries that we work in who like that would start helping us. So he's also at UW Madison alum. So, yeah.
I'm curious about where you strategically, or how you strategically think about the manufactured dehydrators. And I guess I could see 2 possibilities. One is that that itself is a profit center whose IP you'd protect and which you would see as your product. The other would be that's an enabler to drive your real product, which is this vertically integrated market.
It's a really good question. So each side of this line is different. So on this side, these are the dehydrators. This is one in Wisconsin. But this is a dehydrator we would build locally out of local materials. We would not protect the IP. There's not really much behind this one.
Right.
And this is something that we would get out there as quickly as possible. We'd hand out manuals on how to build it. We'd train masons and carpenters so they could go build more and get paid by communities to do it. The more that was out there, it enabled us to get more product. When we start manufacturing, the relationships change. So this is normally paid for by a community, by a immigrant donor, sometimes by an NGO. This will most likely normally be paid through microfinance or big NGO grants. So because of that change, that's when we start protecting that IP, that's when we start taking some profit from it. Meanwhile, this was always done just at cost to help scale. So it's funny that when it's time for us to scale and we need more, we're also going to be able to make more money from it. But it's really just because of how it is. So yeah, it's tell me if I answered that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it's something that we went back and forth on for a long time, but yeah. Right now we're on it as we're protecting this IP. This is still out there in communities that build it to our standards, we still work with. But these are the ones that farmers won't necessarily be taking the brunt of the cost, so we'll feel okay more with making profit from it.
Are you going to continue to support both? Because it strikes me, and you actually anticipated and answered a follow-up question I had, which was, the local economy impact of enabling people, kind of like you said, letting people build businesses around training the trainer, let people build businesses around building the dehydrators.
So two things. Some of the trainers in Kenya are being transitioned and getting ready for this. So they'll be the ones who go around and teach them how to use this system. It's quicker, which just means they get more work, essentially.
Yeah.
They're not paid by hour or by day, they're paid by community that they train. So they can train more communities because it takes shorter to do this. As for what we'll be focusing on this, but our manuals are out there, and if somebody wants a manual for this, that's okay. But for us, we need to focus on this.
For scale?
Yeah, for scale, yeah. But we're not cutting out any communities that meet our standards in other ways.
We've got time for one more question.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
So this all seems like so much. So when you first started, were you yeah, I've got this. I'm definitely gonna, how do you manage the overwhelming amount of detail on a day-to-day basis to keep going?
Yeah. Okay. So when we originally set out, again, it was to turn mangoes into beer. So obviously a lot has changed since then. When it became Agricycle, it's about February of this year, when we broadened our vision from just being this dried fruit company to being something way more, which is really understanding that the real value we created was this supply chain, was this network, and was this access to ingredients that we have. So that's when Agricycle really started. How do we compartmentalize 2 brands, 3 product lines, 7 countries, all the networks? Pull out an org chart, but in general, we rely so much on our field staff. They're highly independent. We coordinate them as far as direction is concerned and vision for where we're headed, but we rely on them so much for the actual training, the actual integration and sensitization of farmers. And that's really our model, is that more and more while our teams are internal, more and more we're shoveling off responsibility to people who are better at it. So really we built this vision, and then NGOs who are good at training farmers are now training farmers. NGOs who also, we have local governments now who help train our farmers in better farming techniques. That's not something that normally is with us, but it's just an added benefit of, we're called investors whenever we travel. When an investor is working in a community, suddenly the government wants to support that community. So we make sure that happens. But like, this really just goes to show that in every way we're trying to shovel things off to people who are better at it, and we're not even paying for it. It's because that's their mission to do it. And they're looking for opportunities to do that, which means that our team in the US can focus way more on the core component of marketing and sales.
You are wise beyond your years.
All right, let's hear it for Josh now. Okay, so we haven't done this in a while because our mugs have been missing, but they have mysteriously materialized, and we have them again. I totally had them last week and just forgot. One of these is for you.
Thank you.
The other one is for you to hand out to somebody from the audience, maybe whoever asked the best questions, maybe some random person, maybe the guy in a suit. I've already asked. Yeah.
It's an easy one. It's selfish. Try to develop some business here.
All right, so quick reminders before I let you all go. Make sure to grab the 1 Million Cups app and check in. Also, if you're not already planning to be there, we will be at the Badger Startup Summit tomorrow. We'll be running the Vent Fair and doing other stuff probably. So hopefully we will see you all there. Thank you one more time for joining us for 1 Million Cups. Have a good rest of your day.